Hello, all you Calvineers. Welcome to another episode of The Calvin Show. I'm Calvin, and let's get rolling. So over Christmas, my wife and I decided to go to a fancy hotel in Soho. At the hotel, they had this bottle of, actually a half bottle of champagne, a Krug champagne that they charged $125 for at the minibar. And I was intrigued. You know what? What the fuck? I've never drunk a $125 half bottle of champagne. Let's try this stuff. See if it's as great as the price would suggest. But my whole point with this is that putting myself into that environment of the fancy hotel and the bottle of champagne just made me identify with like what kind of frequency would I have to resonate at in order to feel like that was natural for me versus that was something that was like, oh my God, that's a crazy thing to do. And it kind of got me thinking about like where I'm at in my life now versus where I was at 5 years ago or 10 years ago. I'm way more of who I truly am right now than I ever was, and I see my own value and worth here more than I've ever done. What would it be like if I'd seen that, say, 5 years ago or 10 years ago, if I'd really been able to believe in myself at this level and operate in the world at this level of confidence that I'm showing now, where I see my worth at this level? I've always been operating from like a mindset of needing to prove myself. Like, well, I believe in myself, but my results aren't there. So maybe I'm wrong to believe in myself, and maybe I should like tone it down a little until I have the results. But that's completely backwards. Your results are going to be a reflection of your confidence level, your belief in yourself. So if you're restricting your belief in yourself because you don't have the results, then you're not going to be creating those results. What I've done in my life is work in a very gradual fashion. Get a little better results and then believe a little more in myself, and then get a little better results and then believe a little more in myself. And that's great, but it's slow. So what if we could just tune into right now, what do you see as your biggest, truest, deepest potential, not as trying to become who you think you need to become to be good enough. You are good enough. You're already exactly as you need to be. You just need to really believe in who you truly most deeply are inside and love that and believe that that you're worthy of that. And then go out into the world from that place. And I guarantee you that you have so much more fun and you're going to see results so much faster. And when I started to think about this, thought back to my good friend, his name is David Heinemeier Hansen. He also goes by the acronym DHH. And he's the founder of an open source web framework that I've used for years. It's called Ruby on Rails. He's a fellow Danish citizen. So I met him back in Copenhagen in 2004 or something. And I hired him to come into my office because I had a software firm back then and show me Ruby on Rails because it seemed really, really cool. And I remember still that day, he spent like 4 hours with us talking about everything. And his confidence level was through the fucking roof. At this point, he had pretty much nothing to his name. Nobody had heard of like Ruby, the programming language. Nobody had heard of him. He was this like little dude from Denmark. But his confidence level was like way up there from the beginning. And I remember meeting him and thinking, this guy is gonna freaking go places. The funny thing was at that time, like I was way more accomplished as a software engineer and as an entrepreneur than he was. And I was working on project management software. I was working with big name clients like MIT and Greenpeace and University of Heidelberg and all these people. David as well had developed Rails in order to build a project management software called Basecamp, which we happen to be using today. So we were both working on project management, but I was sort of in many ways more successful, more accomplished at this point. So I asked him, I want to consult with you on using Rails for this stuff, but we're kind of solving the same problem. How do we avoid competing with each other? And his answer was, look, you gotta get up real early in the morning if you're gonna compete with Jason and me in project management. He was so confident of himself. There's no fucking way that we could compete with them. And he was right. They've knocked it out of the park. If you can take one thing from this, it would be to like start embodying the confidence level of who you know you can truly become, who you know you truly are inside. Everybody who's something once was nothing. We're all born nothing. We have to get from that nothing to wherever we go in life If you want to get to where you really want to go to, start embodying that. That's the least selfish thing that you can possibly do, because only when you're operating at your true home level of where you truly belong can you really contribute the value and the gift that you have to offer the world at full capacity. So get there as fast as you fucking can, all right?
Hey Calvin, it's Ari. Congratulations on the new show, bro. You're gonna do really well. Wanted to send best wishes and also give you a little business question. In my last company, we had a very interesting team. Everyone was super smart, but people didn't always get along. And one of the questions I had is, when you're on a team, especially at an early stage startup, are people your friends or your foes? Looking forward to your answer. Peace, bro.
Thank you, Ari, for that question. I mean, I would say definitely your people are your friends. Whether they're your customers or your employees or your investors or your competitors or just people out in the marketplace that are not even shopping for what you have to offer, they're all your fucking friends. So a lot of people, when it comes to business, will say, well, yeah, there's definitely foes in business. There are people out to eat your lunch. There's competitors. There's maybe people spreading bad rumors and saying bad things about you, or difficult customers, or whatever it is. And I say, bullshit. I really believe, honestly, that everything in life happens for you. There's always something for you to learn in this. The fact that Apple came along and with the iPhone and kind of gobbled up and completely changed the mobile phone industry, it was better for Microsoft because it forced Microsoft to revisit who they are and who they were in this new world. My software company was called Zenbilling before it was called Simplero. So now we're Simplero, which I think is a much better name. One of the problems with the name Zenbilling was that people thought it was just billing software, but it's not. We do the whole thing, from email marketing and marketing automation and landing pages and opt-ins and autoresponders and billing and delivering content, and all of these things we handle. And I knew for a long time that it never really sat right with me. I knew I wanted to change it. I needed to change it. But the impetus to change it came from not really a competitor, some friends of mine, actually, who created a company called Zendesk. When I applied for a trademark for Zenbilling for my company, they objected to it. I was like, hey, what's going on with this? And let's talk about it. And he wasn't willing to talk to me, so he just sent me letters from his lawyer instead with cease and desist and all kinds of stuff. I'm not, with my tiny little company, gonna fight, with a VC-funded company that has, I forget how many millions of dollars they had in funding. So let me take this opportunity to do what I've been wanting to do for years, which is change the name of my company and my product. And I'm super happy with it. Even in business, where you meet someone who looks on the surface to be like a motherfucking mean foe, truly, they're just a friend in disguise if you'll let them be. There's a quote attributed to Albert Einstein. I don't know if he really said it or it's just attributed to him. Every human being needs to decide for themselves whether the universe is a friendly place or not. The way that I grew up was definitely that the universe was not a friendly place. The universe and the world in general felt unsafe. And I remember the moment very clearly in December 2010 when this kind of quote was really at the forefront of my mind. And I remember this feeling of walking through the snowy streets of Copenhagen and really taking this question in. Is the universe fundamentally a friendly place? And I believed deep in my heart that it was. And I still believe that. It was a question of, do I allow myself to trust in that? Making that decision to trust the universe and to open myself up to that trust has completely transformed my life. It's a very clear, momentary decision. I decide that I'm willing to open up. And then the actual opening up has taken a lot longer. So that's what comes to mind when you ask that question. When it comes to your team, if it doesn't feel like people are supporting you, that they're really there to work for you and work together, I would look inside for that, right? So I was very hard to help for many years because I was like, oh, nobody can do it well enough and I'm the only one who can do it. 2 years ago, kind of really wanting to get a good programmer on board in my software company. And I had hired some in the past, but it hadn't really worked out. And I realized that part of it was that I got a lot of praise from my parents as a kid growing up from being a good programmer. And so part of it was that little boy of mine didn't want to invite someone else onto the team who might outshine me as a programmer. And that's really not, helpful in so many ways. I mean, it created other crazy situations where I would launch a new feature and then some people would have like issues with it and be like, oh, I don't like how this is done and this is done. And I took it so personally. It really hurt deeply. And, it's not really helpful. This is a business. We're just trying to make people's lives easier. It's not helpful if I put myself on the line like that. These days, I feel so blessed to have a team that just gels. Everybody's working together. Everyone's like super much pulling their weight. And it's a big thing for me to get to a point where I was like, if I'm going to hire someone, they're going to have to make me more money that I'm spending on them. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. But at first I was like, oh, I can't say that. And like, I have an obligation. If someone expresses an interest in working for me, I almost felt like I was obligated to actually hire them, even if they weren't a good match. All kinds of crazy stuff can happen in this arena, man. It's like relationships are everywhere, and business relationships are really not fundamentally different from your other relationships. So I'd also be curious to see where this kind of relationship with your team might be reflected in other areas of your life. Did you replay those same issues? And what is it really about underneath? Part of your question too was about interactions with the team. So maybe each individual member was great, but the way that they interacted weren't great. That's like your job as a leader, of course, to be like, here's where we're going. A lot of that can happen if people are unclear about their roles and responsibilities and direction, and they start to get uncertain, and then they start to create like little squabbles and whatnot between themselves. Definitely focus on the vision, direction, and getting everybody focused there. If some people don't fit in, get rid of them. It's not good for anyone to have people on the team who don't fit. I always look at it as, obviously firing someone is like the toughest thing that you can do in a business. But if someone's not right, then I firmly believe that it's not right for them to be in that job either. I'm not serving them by keeping them there. I serve them better by letting them go and say, hey, this wasn't exactly what you were looking for, and it wasn't what I was looking for either. So let's set each other free, and you can go looking for what you really need, and I could go looking for what I really need. What I've noticed for myself is that anytime there is some kind of mismatch on the team, I start to not look forward to meeting this person, to spending time with them, to working with them. I start to just get a little annoyed, and I'm someone who can't hide these things. So if I'm annoyed with someone, like it shows, especially my wife will always like comment on it. She's like, it sounded like you were kind of annoyed at this person after, on the call, and that person might not notice, and I might not really notice. But the best indicator to me has always been the body sensations in my stomach. I think your body holds tremendous wisdom, and we really just know these things, and we don't have to figure them out in our heads. And I think it's important to realize that you don't have to justify these things necessarily. I've had interviews for positions many times where like I have questions for them and the resume and like behaviorally focused questions, all these things, but like literally like 2 minutes into the call, I know in my gut, I just have this feeling like I'm not enjoying this. And then I'll just say to people, I'll just be like, you know what? I'm a very intuitively driven person. My intuition says this is not a fit. And I don't think there's any point in us like spending a half hour on the phone when I already know it's not going to be a fit. And they're always very respectful of that. They're like, hey, yeah, I'm sorry to hear that, but I totally get that, and I appreciate that you're not wasting anybody's time. The more that I have allowed myself to not settle for second best, not settle for anything because I felt like, well, this is probably the best I can do, the better it's been. Like, it's so much better to not hire that person than it is to hire someone and it's not really the right fit. It's going to happen sometimes, but try to avoid it and really trust that the exact right match for you is out there. So that was my very, very short answer to your question. Thank you so much, Ari, for submitting your question. I really appreciate it. All right, everybody, that's it for this episode of The Calvin Show. Make sure to go to the website, calvincorelli.com, sign up for the mailing list. I'll send you the newest episodes as soon as they're ready, and I will send you some extra saucy, juicy bits in email. Throw me a comment, a question. I love your questions. Thank you so much, Ari, for yours, and keep them coming. And remember, true anarchy is being yourself.